never seen.
Yo, what's up guys? Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for another episode of Love You Long Time. This one is Metal Church's The Dark, their second album, 1986. Get a big label behind them now. Elektra Records signs them after that awesome debut 2 years earlier. So we'll do a little brief history of the band. We're going to talk a lot about the debut because really, in this case, I really remember this thing being a shade behind the debut. On its best day, it was as good as the debut in my memory. Probably overall a hair underneath it. Let's see if it can live up to that. That's what I remembered from it. Just got this thing about 3 weeks ago. Listened to it 3, maybe 4 times, and really looking forward to digging into this guy. Good one. Guys, I hope your summer's going well. You guys rock. Hope everyone's enjoying their goodies, by the way, too. And today's pairing, it's always brought to you by something to drink. Today we're just going for some whiskey. Kind of hot out today. I rarely do straight up liquor, so we're highballing it with some ginger ale. Love it. Nice and refreshing. Multiple takes mean I'm already half done. All right, y'all. Let's do it. This band, Metal Church, forms in Seattle area, 1980. Kind of hard to believe, man. I just, those mid-80s, to me this is a mid-80s band. It's kind of hard to believe that we're only a year after the 70s and Metal Church is together. Mainstay from the band as far as songwriting goes, but at the time in the band fully, guitarist Kurt Vanderhoof, singer David Wayne, drummer Kirk Arrington, who I think was awesome on the debut, bassist Duke Erickson, and other guitarist Craig Wells forms the band. As I mentioned, of course, you all know, 1984, their debut album, just self-titled Metal Church. In my opinion, fantastic. One of the best metal albums ever, for sure, in my opinion. When I purged my metal, a lot of my metal I got rid of in the late 80s. Got into classic rock and, such an overreaction, I know. But back in the probably early 90s, this was one of the first metal albums that I had gotten rid of that I went out and got again. And you're looking at it, this CD right here. I had the original on vinyl. But anyway, the songs on here I think are fantastic. The playing is probably even better. And I just thought the sort of crown jewel of this debut was the production. Just love this production. I think it's one of about 5 albums that come to mind when I think of great produced metal albums. Screaming for Vengeance, Sabbath's debut, which I don't think gets enough credit for being a really great sounding album. That's probably the one that reminds me the most of this. A little dry, but everything's super clear and crisp. Not only that, but I think the band was able to, in a genre that's not easy to do, create their own little niche and their own sound. In metal, I don't think it's that easy. I think Metal Church kind of do. It's a lot of speed metal, but they've got some slower parts that are more classic metal. And in intertwining those, I think they kind of made their own sound. So that's what I think makes the magic of this debut. The great songs, great playing, and great production. The triple crown here, fantastic, love it. So overall, I think one of the best debuts in metal of all time. So how did I get into Metal Church? I can remember hearing Highway Star on Metal Shop. Of all the songs, right, Highway Star. But that's the one they played, 94 WISP, midnight in Philly. And if you saw the episodes where I talked about going to see Metallica at the Tower, January 85, and then Purple a month later, it was with the same 2 sets of guys, these 3 guys that were in a Christian metal band, but they really knew their classic metal, and they were into new metal too. Big Deep Purple fans, and I was going to Bible study with them. I think it was Tuesday nights or what have you. And after the Bible study for an hour, we would just hang around and talk, mostly talk music, and somebody brought up, have you heard this new band's version of Highway Star? It's really fast, really heavy. A couple of the other guys didn't hear it. I don't even know if I heard it when he first said that. But then Metal Shop played it again. that Saturday. So by the next Bible study, the next Tuesday, we all had heard it, all talking about it, and it really had me excited to get this debut album. Just off Highway Star, which turns out is probably my least favorite song on here. This is how great this album is, And it was, I remember it was, I don't know, $10 or $12 album, something like that. And I came across a used version for like $7 or $8. So that's the one I grabbed. Don't have it anymore. I know, I suck. But it was an instant favorite, man. I loved it right away. I mean, Beyond the Black, come on. Now The Dark, let's move forward to The Dark. We're in 86. I've been loving the debut for a year and a half. And like I mentioned, on Elektra Records now. I think I heard a song or two on Metal Shop. I'm not even sure. I really feel like I was just in the record store one day and there it was. And I didn't even know it was coming. We never really got warnings about metal albums coming soon. Even the ads in magazines like Circus and Hit Parader. It was just, the ads tended to be for things that were already out, just coming out. You didn't get a warning. I don't know how many times I was in a record store and came across something and no idea it was coming. The Dark was another one of those. Now, I might have heard something on Metal Shop once it was released. But anyway, so I'm home with The Dark. At this point, I am not bargain shopping. Brand new vinyl. I don't care what it's costing. I see that sucker. Bought it that day. I do remember needing maybe one listen to get totally into it. But, I loved it pretty quick. I already told you how similar it was to Under Lock and Key, which I thought was just as good as Tooth and Nail on its best day, and at worst, a shade under. That's where The Dark ended up landing for me. The debut, loved it. Loved The Dark too, probably just a little less than the debut, but overall, really, really liked it. Probably, like I said, an 8.5 or a 9. So let's see. Let's go down the song list and see if it lives up to that kind of memory. Pretty tough climb, I'll admit. Ton of Bricks right off the bat, and Start the Fire. Ton of Bricks. I have this. The first thing I noticed with this, guys, and I'm talking about now. I've heard this thing 3 or 4 times in the last 3 weeks. The classic horrible mid-'80s production. It's just unavoidable, and it sucks. And the worst part is that friggin' snare. God, I can't stand that kind of snare drum. It's just the opposite of what I was describing with the debut. Horrible, fluffy, reverb, echo, whatever that shit is that they put on some of these snares in the mid-'80s. Good God. So, all right, that being said, Ton of Bricks is awesome. Good songs will fight their way through shitty production, and Ton of Bricks does. I love the opener. Start the Fire, I would say more in the lines of like classic metal as opposed to the speed metal of the first album. But you know what? Again, it kicks ass. I love this song. This might be my favorite. So a couple songs in, and Start the Fire, I think maybe something along the lines of Defenders of the Faith or Ram It Down Priest stylistically. But you know what? It's great. It's just a great heavy riff, heavy song, heavy rhythm, heavy riff. Love it. Next up, Method to Your Madness. This one, sort of slower. There's that slow melodic riff behind the faster beat. At first I didn't like it too much, but a couple listens, really starting to like this one. So this is a really good song, all right? Not awesome, but I would say very good. And same for Watch the Children Pray. I remember really loving this back in the day. I'd go very good with this one. I think it's cool. Power ballad style song, just for lack of a better description. Again, not awesome, but really good, And like I said, I used to love it. So we're almost halfway through this album, and so far, I would say, yeah, I'm into this. Over My Dead Body, faster one, lots of cool riffs. The solos in here are the best. I think the best on the album. Not debut level awesome overall, but there are, like I said, some parts about this song, the solos particularly, I think are great. I think as far as the style of this song, Over My Dead Body is probably the closest thing to something from the debut. So really good again, maybe not incredible, but so far side one was pretty awesome. All right, The Dark. Love how it's got that funky off-time beat. Now remember my best buddy Rick, who lived next door to me. We were like best friends from the day he moved in. I think we were 9 years old. Got into music together a couple years later. Got into metal together a couple years after that. Rick used to not like this song. He thought it was like a rap beat, hip. I guess nowadays we'd call it hip hop. Back then we called it a rap sounding song. I loved it. He couldn't get into it because it was too funky and rap-like or hip hop flavored. But I didn't care about that. I just really liked the song right away. The Dark, I think, still really good and still one of my favorites. Psycho, fast. All right, some cool tempo changes in here. I like this one. Don't really love it. It just this one. The sound on this one to me is just too over the top 80s. For whatever reason, it bothers me more than a lot of these other songs. They're all pretty similar sound and production-wise, but this one, a little over the top. The instruments are just like buried. The vocals sound pretty good. I won't say the vocals are bad, but the horrendous snare sound here is just like unbearable. So loud too. That's the other thing. The loudest instrument here is the worst sounding instrument, the snare. Kind of overpowers everything. Back in the day, we used to call it the phony snare sound. You know what? I'm going to revive that description. All right, phony snare sounds is exactly the best way to describe this. Sounds nothing like a snare drum in person, and everything like Synsonics. Dating myself with that. And everything like some triggered drum effect as opposed to a drum. So another one. This one I like, don't love. Maybe not as much as others. Probably my least favorite so far, actually. Psycho. Next up, Line of Death. This is a real headbanger, fast. There's some cool dual guitar harmony riffs on this one, if I remember right. I like the change of pace to like this plodding rhythm after it's fast for most of the song. Another one I would say good, not awesome. Ninth song in, Burial at Sea. Now this one, I love it. I remember this one really well. There was a movie called Ghost Ship, from the early 80s that this always reminded me of that movie. I don't know why. The movie wasn't even awesome, but it was pretty cool. I loved the premise of it was awesome. Burial at Sea has this cool fade in that I just always dug. And like I said, an old favorite, and I still think this one holds up, again, despite the shitty production. Western Alliance, for an ender, I don't love it. Sort of have this cool, maybe they could have did this a little bit more because this actually works really well. There's some sort of what I consider sort of like a Priest Turbo album like effect behind, everything. It's kind of like works as the beat to the song. It really sounds cool. Kind of like that part of it. So overall, guys, there are like 6 songs on here that I really like. 4 of them I love, another 2 or 3 that I think are really good. But there is 2 or 3 that I think are just sort of subpar, at least compared to those other 6 or 7, and compared to pretty much everything on the debut. I hate to sound like this is a comparison to the debut, but that's sort of the point of this episode, in that I kind of remember this being just about as good as the debut. Admittedly, this was going to be a tough thumbs up in the first place because the debu's just almost perfection, as a metal album. The songs here are simpler, I'm assuming just going for a more commercial metal audience, but the simple songs don't allow the band to show their full musical ability and their talent. I got to go thumbs down on The Dark as a Love You Long Time. It'll have to be, right about where the Under Lock and Key landed. Really like it Long Time. Can't say I love it. Love the debut. This one, maybe I can give it 7.5 or 8, probably an 8. All right, because it's good, it's solid, it's heavy all the way through. But there are 2 or 3 songs that don't do a lot for me, and man, the production blows. Doesn't help matters at all. However, 6 or 7 songs on this album are able to overcome that shitty production. But overall, I got to call it like it is. And speaking of calling it like it is, I should have probably went with a thumbs up on HSAS Through the Fire. Reason being, I was kind of called it a coin flip. And then, if I had to make a call, I said, I guess it's a thumbs down. After that episode was over, I did an individual rating of each song, and it came out to an 8.1 and change. So HSAS Through the Fire was actually, I called it a coin flip, but at the end I said, gun to my head, it's a thumbs down. Actually, it's a thumbs up. So I know I'm second guessing myself. Not really. I just didn't do as thorough a job as I could have trying to figure that out. So from now on, if I'm ever in a quandary, I'll rate every song and do it that way. But The Dark, I don't even have to go there with this one. 7.5 or 8 is definitely not an 8.5 or 9. So Metal Church will be a thumbs down. But again, another one that I'm glad to have back in the collection. Man, I probably got rid of this in 89 or 90. So almost 35 years, right? Wow. Awesome. Guys, I hope you're all having a good summer. I hope you're all enjoying your shit that I sent you. And guess what? Santa's already shopping for Christmas. And I'm listening, man. There will be no CDR. Let's all say it together. Bullshit in that batch. Might be fewer things, but they will be all silver press, legit. Might not even all be bootlegs, but I think you guys kind of dig that, so I'll go that route probably. Next up for Love You Long Time, guess what we're not going to be featuring? Metal. We're going to be checking out Marshall Tucker Band, Searching for a Rainbow. I'm not sure which album this is of theirs. Maybe their second. I'm not even sure, so I probably shouldn't say. But I had this one back in the 80s, late 80s, and it was one of my cassettes. I got rid of all them 5-6 years ago at this point. And even I haven't heard this album in a good 20 years. Let's put it that way, because I stopped listening to my cassettes forever ago. But anyway, bought a used copy off of eBay, and you know what? I got burned on this one. Will not play. Half the songs will. Garbage. So I ordered me another off of Amazon. Same exact material, one bonus track. You know it's from Amazon when it arrives with the good old cracked jewel case. Sign of a quality company. Always, every CD I get from them, cracked. Anyway, guys, next episode is going to be Super Deluxe Edition update. Give you all the new release news. Do a couple of reviews. Been listening to some Whalers Deluxe Editions. Got a little more into the Thin Lizzy Super Deluxe Edition box set, Live and Dangerous. Might just review one CD off there, my favorite one, instead of trying to go through all 8 CDs of that guy. And also recently acquired Greg Allman Laid Back Deluxe Edition. That should be the next episode. Guys, hope you're all doing well, and I will catch your asses later.